Hey there, champ. I noticed that you were making a little popsicle house and you made a few errors there. Sorry to say, you're gonna have to pay me $5 for each mistake. When dealing with humongous structures, every little detail should be cared for, and when it's overlooked, bad things can happen. And with those bad things, it can also be pretty pricey. Let's take a look at the 10 most expensive construction fails. Number 10. Kansai International Airport. Empty areas are hard to find in Japan, so when the town of Kobe started to develop economically, the government decided to build an airport, not on land, but on water. Yes, you heard it right. Japan decided to build a floating airport. The idea was actually pretty simple. 2 giant boxes made of concrete and rock would be placed under the sea, and rocks, sands, and concrete would then be poured into the boxes to make a kind of island on which the airport would be. And the idea was transformed into reality. But then it was soon realized that the island was slowly sinking due to the clayey seabed. So more rock, sand, and concrete was poured to save the island. Then the terminal was built. Under the terminal were 900 columns of cement. The idea was that whenever the island would start sinking, giant steel shafts would be placed under some columns to raise the island. Of course, this turned out to be extremely costly. The airport was opened in 1994 with the cost exceeding the budget by a whopping $5 billion. According to data, the island is still sinking at the rate of 6 inches per year, and the airport is under huge debt. Number 9. The CNA Center. Located at 333 South Wabash Avenue in the Central Business District of Chicago, Illinois, is the Big Red. The Big Red is the nickname for the 44-story bright red building known as the CNA Center, and not a holding place for the delicious soda. The happy colors of the building had once witnessed a tragedy, though. A cracked piece of glass tore apart from the building's 29th floor and fell on a woman who was walking down below. The woman, 37-year-old Anna Flores, unfortunately did not survive. The breaking of the glass was not a sudden accident either. Ever since its construction back in 1973, the glass panes had begun to damage because they could not withstand the huge temperature changes of Chicago. One study also recommended that the glass panes be replaced and a restraint system be installed so that the cracked windows could be held in place until their replacement was done. The developers ignored this, and the fateful incident occurred in 1999. The developers had to pay $18 million in damages to Anna's family and incurred a cost of $9 million more for replacing the panes and installing a restraint system. This case makes me remember the phrase, "A stitch in time saves 9, as well as pride cometh before fall. Number 8. John Hancock Tower. When the ground was dug up for the construction of the John Hancock Tower in 1967, the nearby Trinity Church got damaged and the church won $11.6 million in a lawsuit. However, more financial blows were in store for the building. The 60-story building, which became the tallest in Boston, had some serious problems in its initial years. Each window pane of the skyscraper was a lofty 500 pounds in weight, which popped out of the building during high winds. It was found out that the cause of the window problem was in the way the windows were designed. Another problem was the cracking of walls and partitions during high winds. These factors delayed the opening of the building from 1971 to 1976. To solve these problems, all of the 10,334 window panes had to be replaced, and the interiors were reinforced. All of these shot up the cost of the building from $75 million to $175 million. However, I suppose all that pain and suffering was rewarded when the building was awarded the prestigious American Institute of Architects National Honor in 1977. The architect of the building was the same person who designed buildings like the Boston Government Center and the John F. Kennedy Presidential Library and Museum. Number 7. The Walkietalkie Building. "Wait, why are you taking pictures of my car?" asked a curious Martin Lindsay. "Sir, your car is melting," said the journalist who was clicking photos of Martin's car. This was my TED Talk. Thank you for attending. This might have been the conversation which took place between Martin Lindsay and the journalist in the parking area near the Fenchurch Street building. Now, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, Martin Lindsay, the director of tiling company Moderna Contracts Ltd., parked his car, a Jaguar, near a building, and then when he returned after a few hours, he found that a journalist was taking pictures of his Jaguar because it had melted in some places. So what actually happened? Was this some kind of black magic? Oh no. It turned out that it was the very building near which the car was parked due to which the melting took place. Those of you who live over in London must be familiar with the odd-shaped building at 20 Fenchurch Street, which is nicknamed the Walkietalkie Building because of the odd shape. When the building was completed, its convex glass surface reflected and focused the sun's light onto the nearby road like a hot laser beam. This raised the temperatures of that part of the road to levels at which cars, like Martin Lindsay's Jaguar, can melt and eggs can be fried. Lindsay was paid a sum of £946 as repair money by the developers of the building. And to tackle the problem of sunburns, a Bryce Salil sunshade was put up to block the sun's rays. The cost of the sunshade was actually not as much as compared to the £200 million budget of the building, but it still cost a lot. Number 6. Tacoma Narrows Bridge. Too sleek, too flexible, not heavy enough. L'Oreal. These are some of the reasons that experts gave when the Tacoma Narrows Bridge in the USA collapsed. When its construction finished in the year 1940, it was the third longest suspension bridge behind the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco and the George Washington Bridge in New York City. But there was one thing that raised eyebrows. The road base of the 2,800-foot-long bridge was very narrow, only 39 feet wide in fact, and the bridge was not made stiff enough. Its stiffness was 1/3 of the standard prescribed measure. The result? The architecture swayed up and down even in modest gusts of wind. This earned the bridge the nickname Galloping Gertie. The professor of engineering, Bert Farquharson of the University of Washington, wanted to study the bridge and come up with ideas to minimize the oscillating motions of the bridge. So on the 7th of November in 1940, he picked up his video recorder and went to film the motion of the bridge. In a very historical coincidence, the bridge collapsed when Bert had the cameras rolling at the bridge. The collapse of the oscillating bridge was recorded and it was estimated to cause damages in the millions. Number 5. The Millennium Bridge. This one has some similarities to the previous entry of this list. It's a bridge, and it wobbles. Also costs a lot to fix. This one does have some differences as compared to the previous entry though. It is situated in the UK and it did not collapse. On the opening day of the bridge on June 10, 2000, a lot of people walked on the bridge simultaneously. And when they did this, the bridge started to wobble. So, to keep themselves from falling, they timed their footfalls with the motion of the bridge. This synchronized footfall made the bridge to wobble even more violently. 2 days after this incident, the authorities shut down the $26 million bridge indefinitely. Dampers were installed at places in the bridge to minimize the swaying motions of the bridge, costing around $7 million more. On the 30th of January 2002, the bridge was opened to public once more, but the public was still pretty skeptical and many refused to walk on it. To put an end to their fears, the authorities came up with a genius plan. They started offering free sandwiches to encourage people to walk the bridge. On top of that, the Southwick Mayor and the London Town Crier dressed in Victorian garbs to lead people onto the bridge. Number 4. Kemper Memorial Arena. At a cost of $22 million, the iconic Kemper Memorial Arena was built. It was a 17,600-seater stadium designed by Helmut John. The most striking feature of the structure was its hanging roof. There were no columns to support the roof. Rather, the 3-acre concrete and steel roof was supported by 3 exterior space frames with metal trusses. The roof was designed in such a way that the rainwater accumulated on it was released gradually through undersized drains. This particular feature of the roof resulted in its eventual collapse. On the 4th of June 1979, heavy rain and wind struck Kansas City. The rain fell at the rate of 4 inches per hour, and this quickly overburdened the Kemper roof, which was connected to the undersized drains. As a result, almost a third of the roof collapsed. Fortunately though, the arena was not in use at that time. Unfortunately though, 5 of the security persons and other staff who were inside at that time didn't survive. What's even more terrifying is the fact that 13,000 people had attended a rock concert just the night before the disaster. The place was then reopened within a year and has since become one of the most researched incidents among physics students. Number 3. Hyatt Regency Walkway Collapse. This is the deadliest structure collapse in U.S. history after 9/11. The 45-story Hyatt Regency in Kansas City had a large lobby. Over it were 3 walkways on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th floors respectively. The walkways on the 2nd and 4th floors had a flawed design. The support rods of the 2nd floor walkway were connected to the 4th floor walkway instead of directly to the ceiling. This put undue pressure on the 4th floor walkway. About 1,600 people were attending a function in the lobby. It was at that moment that the 4th floor walkway finally gave into the pressure, and along with the 2nd floor walkway, collapsed onto the crowded lobby. Over 100 people didn't survive. The seemingly minor design flaw in the walkways resulted in over 100 who didn't survive and $150 million to be paid to the victims. Number 2. The Massacre. What is the name given to the occurrence in which a massacre happens by molasses? Well, a massacre. The U.S. Industrial Alcohol had a tank constructed for the purpose of storing molasses and fermenting them. The tank was constructed and there were some problems, like the steel walls of the tank were too thin, ranging from 0.67 to 0.31 inches in width. The rivets were also very weak. But these problems were shamelessly ignored by the money-minded company and town authorities. Things just kept going on. More than 20 times the tank was filled with molasses. The tank was also showing signs of its impending doom by developing cracks from which the town kids filled their cups with sweet molasses dripping from the cracks. On one such occasion, when the tank was filled up to its full capacity, it burst. Tons and tons of sticky molasses invaded the streets and flooded them with 35-mile-per-hour waves of sleet molasses. It turned out to be a tragic event, resulting in the loss of 21 people and injuring another 150. The company also had to pay $628,000 in damages, which is about $9.37 million as per today's money. It's honestly a real shame that all this occurred due to some stupid faulty construction which could have easily been rectified had the town authorities not been so selfishly money-minded. In all honesty, I doubt they learned their lesson. Number 1. The Big Dig Tunnel. 4,000 kilograms succumbed to gravity and fell onto a car below. The woman in the car died from the accident, and it was found that the ceilings were glued by epoxy, an adhesive material which later comes. The tunnel was reopened 1 year after the tragedy. If you agree these mistakes should never happen again, like the video, and hey, I'll meet you over in the next one. Later, everybody.